Hello everyone, this is Orlando from A Collector's Dream, and today is a beautiful day out here in South Florida. So I'm outside just sitting here on the floor actually, on a cushion, and we're going to continue our series today on the pre-war guide, and this is the comprehensive price guide to rare baseball cards 1886 to present. It's Hager's comprehensive guide. And I know you guys have had a hard time finding this book. It's been out of print for over 30 years. So, you know, I'm going to go through the whole thing eventually. So you can always go back and listen to it. But keep looking. Some guys have found it for under $50. At Amazon used books. So see what you can do there and hang in there. Hopefully you'll find it. So I'm outside getting a little bit of glare. I'm going to try to work out whatever I can here. Let me see what I can do here. Make this a little bit better. So I may hear some birds and things there, but we're going to go ahead and start here. And we're going to start with the Nielsen's chocolates. And these are the 1921, 1922 Nielsen's chocolates. It's the V61. And they're very, very similar to the, just all the candy issues, pretty much. And these in particular are very similar in design to the American Caramel. So, because they were distributed by the American Caramel. So these were issued in 1921-22 by the Nielsen Chocolate Company. This series is closely related to the American Caramel Company of Pennsylvania sets. The fronts are identical to the much rarer 1922 E120 series, except that the Nielsen cards are black and white. The player is enclosed by a fancy it says VA frame, is usually in an action pose. His name, position, team, and league are printed on the bottom of the card. As part of the fancy frame, there are two balls, and you can see here that there's balls and masks and players down there. It says a chest protector and crossed bats. The layout on the back is horizontal, and there are two types. There's the ones that have the Nielsen's on the back this way, and the other ones have the Nielsen's that way. They look quite different. It says type 1 has the Nielsen's in the bold Old English type, and they're all the same thickness as the E120 set. The type 2 is much the same, but the cards are unnumbered and thicker. The backs of this type are printed in caps or in uppercase letters. So it's a set of 120 cards. They're 2.5 by 3.5, and again, just like the American Caramel cards, they're going to contain all of pretty much most of all the big name guys here. So it says this is one of the toughest caramel sets to acquire, and you could take a look here and see who are some of the Hall of Famers. Goose Goslin, Joe Sewell, Harry Hooper, and all the big guys are over here. You have the Ty Cobb, of course. You've got the Babe Ruth. You've got the Walter Johnson. It's almost the same, just a smaller set. You got the Grover Cleveland and so on. So it's almost the same set as the E120, and that's the one that's coming up now. And again, it says here that the Cobb, the Ruth, the Johnson, the Alexander, the Hornsby, those are pretty much the big names in this Nielsen chocolate. So the next page, we go right into what they were just referring to there. And this is the American Caramel E120, the 1922. And this is probably, I would say it is the key set in the 1920s. You have certain years that you have, certain sets that are the most popular. In the 30s, you have the Gowdy and things like that. In the 40s, you have the Leaf, and then you got Tops in the 50s. Well, in the 20s, the biggest set that they produced was this, and it was a set of 240 cards. They're 2 by 3.5, and it's the 1922 American Caramel E120 set. I'm gonna try to focus a little bit on that. It's a little difficult here. Yeah, we're outside, so you're gonna hear certain things happening here. So, issued in 1922 by the American Caramel Company of Lancaster and York, Pennsylvania, sorry. The cards were packaged with sticks of caramel candy. American League are printed in sepia and on a yellow background, and the National League cards in blue-green with a green background. That's the difference between the one I just showed you before. Those are black and white. These are more sepia or green background tint. So that's the big difference. The National League are the blue-green kind, as you can see here, and the American Leagues are the sepia colored ones. Sepia, whatever you want to call it. So it says, interesting enough, each design was used for one American League team and one National League team. The backs all have the same basic format, but the interesting thing about them is that the checklist for the back of the card lists only the players for that team of the pictured player. The manager's name precedes that of the players. I'll show you a real quick look at that, how that is shown. So for example, there's the Boston team. So it'll show all of the players. And so what they did in this series is that there's 240 cards total, and there's 15 players for each of the 16 major league teams. So 15 players for each team, 16 teams. So it's 240 total for them, for American League, 120 American League, 120 National League. So this is really one of the most popular and really, in my opinion, the key set of the 1920s. So who are some of the big players in this set? I mean, you've got virtually everyone in here because it has 240 cards. So you have the Grover Cleveland Alexander, you got the Ty Cobb, you know, you've got all the big guys. You got the Walter Johnson. You know, you don't have let's say there's a couple of people that are missing in this set here, but you have pretty much everybody else. And so since it's 240 cards, you can see, you know, each page here. So that's the first page, and then the second page, you got the rest of the big guys, is where you have the Babe. So you got the Babe Ruth here. You know, it's 1920s, so you don't have certain guys, you know, like Joe Jacksons and stuff like that. But you got the Babe Ruth, you got the Ty Cobb, you got the Walter Johnson, Tris Speaker, and so it'll tell you here some of the big names. You know, the Alexander, the Baker, Ty Cobb, Collins, Fritsch, Hornsby, Johnson, Marquardt, Babe Ruth, Sewell, Sisler, Speaker, Whedon, Young, and Cy Young. Forgot about Cy Young. How can you forget about Cy Young? He's in the set too. So that is that caramel, 1922 caramel. One thing I wanted to share, because we're now moving into, let me go back one step here, guys. Bear with me here. Just want to share one more thing here, because this comes into effect here. Because we're moving into 1922 right now. We're moving into a different series of Hall of Famers as they consider it. So the series that we have gone through before, let me make this a little better so you can see. What Hager does here is he puts Hall of Fame stars from 1886 to 1920. So those are the first group, which is what we've kind of been going through. And then it tells you the big stars, the AA1, who are the big name, and then the secondary and third stars. So what we covered in the past videos were with this to 1920. Now we're starting in 1921, and I'll go over those stars in a second. But these are the main guys from early baseball through 1920s to collect. Honus Wagner, Babe Ruth, Ty Cobb, Cap Anson, King Kelly, Cy Young, Walter Johnson, Christy Mathewson, Tim Keefe, and Joe Jackson. Those are the big name guys in those early years. Second name guys are, you know, these guys here, you know, Dan Brothers, Rogers, Hornsby, Nap Lajoie, you know, Tris Speaker, Jim Thorpe, and stuff like that. Then the AA stars are more, you know, Grover Cleveland, Rafael Almeida, the first Cuban player, Mordecai Brown. And then you got the third series of cards here. You know, you have another Cuban here, Armando Marsans, Rue Marquardt. These are the third series of stars. So, but now we're moving into the 1921 through 1946. So when you get into that, you now have a different set of stars, some crossover, but a different set of stars. And these are the AAA stars to collect from 1921 to 1946. You got Babe Ruth. Now Lou Gehrig comes into play. Joe DiMaggio's coming into play. Ted Williams also. You got Joe Jackson in there. You still have some Joe Jackson cards. You got some Ty Cobb still there, and Walter Johnson's. And now you got the Jimmy Fox and Rogers Hornsby coming in, along with more AAA stars like the Bob Feller, Dizzy Deans, and Christy Mathewson still in there, and other ones that start coming into play. And of course, you still have Hannes Wagner in there, but later years from 1921 on. So here we are. So 1922 American Caramel. I talked about those stars in there, and that's some of the ones I mentioned. So next, you've got the 1922 American Caramel gray box. This is the E122. So the E122 is, again, they were issued, let me zoom in a little bit here. They were issued in 1922 by the American Caramel Company of Lancaster. And this series is the same as the series of 80 in the E121 set. So the E121 set, we talked about that one before. And this was the E121 set, so I'll just show you one of mine. This E121 set was one we talked about in the last video. But these are basically the same thing as the 1922 versions. Almost the same, except for the little box, the gray box is what they call the gray box. But the pictures are the same, and the backs are pretty much almost the same, except for the just minor changes. And these cards, again, feature action poses of the players enclosed in a lined white border. And the difference is this box. And that makes the difference between the 1922 and the 1921. This one is a set of 80 cards. And it says in the back, the set consists of pictures of 80 of the leading baseball stars of the American and National Leagues, made only by American Caramel Company, Lancaster, New York, Pennsylvania. This again is 3.5 by 2 by 3.5. And since it is a set of 80, it's a smaller set. So, you know, when you talk about some of these older sets, like the one I just talked about, 240 cards. To get a Babe Ruth, the odds are, again, 1 in 240 because it's once per caramel. These are a little bit easier to get because it's a set of only 80, so your odds are 1 of 80. So that's why these are a little bit more kind of attainable in many cases. So some of the stars here are, again, you have the, I'll do a close up on these here. You have the Grover Cleveland Alexander, you have the Ty Cobb in there. You got really all the big names, including the Babe. There's a Babe Ruth in there. So you have the Alexander, the Cobb, the Hornsby, the Walter Johnson, John McGraw, Babe Ruth, Tris Speaker, you know, Zach Wheat. So you see those guys all in there here. And there he talks about a little bit about them. So 1922 E122. Versus the E121. Next, you have another caramel, and this is the National Caramel set. And this was produced by the National Caramel Company, and this is a 1922 through 23 E220, National Caramel E220. These cards are printed in black and white and are enclosed by a thin white border. At the bottom of the card is the player's name, position, team, and league. They were issued in 1922 and 23 by National Caramel Company. The backs is the major means of identifying these cards as the E220's. First of all, the backs are horizontal in format. The wording states, the set consists of pictures of 120 of the leading baseball stars, American and National Leagues, made only by National Caramel Company, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So these are neat because these are kind of unique pictures from a different set. There's a set of, this set is 121 cards. Actually, it says 120, but it's 121 cards. And they're, again, 2 by 3 1/4. They're pretty much all, these are all the caramel cards, kind of similar in size. And this one is, again, another one of these kind of regional type issues, but there's a lot of them that were distributed out there, so they're available. They're available. Some of the big stars here are Grover Cleveland, Alexander. You got a Ty Cobb. You got a Rogers Hornsby. You've got Walter Johnson, and of course you got the Babe Ruth card. And here's the Babe Ruth card here, card number 90. Plus, again, you have all the big names in here of the day: the Tris Speaker, Casey Stengel, Zach Weed, Robert Moranville, Walter Johnson. So that's the 1922-23 American Caramel set. So we're going to move now to the next one, which is one of the rarer sets, and this is the 1923. I'm sitting here on the floor here on the patio. This is the 1923 Curtis Ireland E123, and these were actually issued by the Curtis Ireland Candy Company in St. Louis, Missouri. So these are out of Missouri. These cards were distributed with Ireland's All-Star Bars. That's what they were called, All-Star Bars. This series is identical to the Willard's Chocolate. So this is just like the Willard Chocolate. All the pictures are exactly the same. The difference is going to be the backs of them. The Willard Chocolate is the V100. The set consists of 180 cards. Again, they're 2 by 3 1/4. And this is 180 cards. These action type pictures are sepia colored, and the pictures are enclosed by a 1/4 inch white border. So you can see that it's a big white border all the way around, just an action photo on there. And it does have like the player's, facsimile autograph on there. It says, and the back says, save this picture. Each one of these represents some of the greatest number. It's a whole big thing, it says on there. I can't read the whole thing right now, it takes forever. But anyway, there are 36 Hall of Famers in this set, and these cards are printed on thin pressboard paper stock, so they are rather thin, kind of more delicate, so they're tougher to find in higher grades. But these are pretty expensive because, again, they're very, very tough to find. And it says that this guy only handled 5 of these cards in the last 5 years. So some of the big names in this set are going to be the Alexander, the Ty Cobb, the Rogers Hornsby, the Walter Johnsons, John McGraw, Connie Mack, and there is a Babe Ruth in this set here. So we'll go over the next page and I'll show you some of these big guys here. So you have the Rogers Hornsby. As you can see, they're real expensive. All of these are, and back in the day, they had that Babe Ruth card as extremely expensive compared to everything else, $18,000. And it's now probably over, $100,000 card, I would imagine, and if in that grade. But so if you go down and you take a look, it says again the Hall of Famers: Grover Alexander, Cobb, Hornsby, Johnson, McGraw, Speaker, and so on. Very, very tough, rare cards to find, and these are not going to be easy to find. They're the 1923 Curtis Ireland cards, E123. Moving on to the next is, what else? The Willard Chocolate. The Willard Chocolate and the Curtis Ireland are basically the same photos. They're very easily confused except for the backs. The back says Willard. The other one, the back says Curtis, Ireland. So this again was issued in These were issued in 1923. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay, we just have a little bit technical difficulty here. So these, I want to give you guys a good look at them here. These were issued in 1923 by the Willard Chocolate Company of Canada. So these came out of Canada. The cards came in packs of Willard chocolate candy. The cards are printed in sepia-colored ink and the player's name in script towards the bottom of the card. So you see the script name on there. The backs are normally blank. In this case, some few may have been found with a Willard's chocolate advertisement. If you obtain any of those with the Willard chocolate ad, it's worth double, it says on there. There's 180 cards, again, 2 by 3 1/4, and they're extremely rare. And again, you're going to have the big names in here, you know, like the Ty Cobbs. You're going to have, you know, the same names as you had in the other set. Alexander, Cobb, Hornsby, Johnson. There's a Ruth in here, Tris Beaker, and all the other guys in here. So we'll go ahead and check out here who we got here. I'll share some of this page here. So you got the Babe Ruth here, card number 139. Tris Beaker. You got, again, Walter Johnson, Rogers Hornsby, and all of the other big name guys. You can always pause this and take a look if you want to at some of these guys here. But I'm going to move on to the next one. So 1923 Willard Chocolate B100. The next comes a very interesting set, which I'd like to get cards from one day. And that's the 1926 Spalding Champions. And the Spalding Champion was issued in 1926, November of 1926. The Sports Company of America printed this set of cards, of which 49 are baseball players, and there's actually the set is 200 total. Only 136 of the 151 stated subjects are known at this time, so really it's still incomplete as to who is in this set. It's to me, this is one of the most fascinating sets, and you can see how they were distributed there. So I'll go on and read a little bit more about it. There's football, there's golf, there's wrestling, there's boxing, there's jockeys, make up the balance of the set. The poses are in black and white within a fancy frame. At the bottom of the cards is the athlete's name and his sport. Turning down now to the back of the cards, we find that the athlete's name followed by his stats. Directly below this is a short biography of the individual, a coupon, and a card game in a small glass-lined envelope. The sports script coupon could be redeemed for sporting equipment. There are 49 baseball players in the set, and 26 of these were Hall of Famers. There are probably not more than 3,500 cards in total left. So let me show you these. These are really cool cards here. So that's kind of what they look like. You can see the Babe Ruth one right there, and it does say Champions, and there's Spalding. So it came with the Spalding from Spalding Sporting Goods with this little coupon, and you would use the coupon to buy items in the store and stuff like that. And it came in this little like envelope with, you know, there's the back of the card, what the back looks like here. So you get a good sense of how these were handed out at the store, mainly at the Spalding. There's the Spalding Champions. So the good thing about this is that 36 Hall of Famers in this set is 26 Hall of Famers in this set, which is a ton of them. And you see you got Grover Cleveland, you've got Ty Cobb in there, you've got Eddie Collins, you got Kai Kyler, rookie card, not the rookie card, but you got Kai Kyler, Goose Goslin, Rogers Hornsby, you got Walter Johnson, Rabbit Moranville, Rue Marquard, the Babe, of course, Babe Ruth is the big card in that set. And you got Joe Sewell, Al Simmons, George Sisler, Tris Speaker, Pie Traynor, Paul Wainer. So you got some cool guys in there. And again, it's a multi-sport set, so there's a lot of other guys, but we're talking baseball, so those are pretty much the ones in baseball. But the 1926 Spalding Champions, cool set, something a little bit different. Next, we're going to move into the 1927 American Caramel, the E126. And this is a really pretty rare set from what I have gathered. And this is very similar to the American Caramel, the earlier American Caramel cards. And it's the E126. It was issued in 1927 by the American Caramel Company of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It was the last caramel set to be issued by this company. This set is unusual because it is numbered. Most E-type cards were the front, it says the front of these sepia or the front of these sepia or white cards usually depicts a player in an action pose surrounded by an 1/8-inch border. At the bottom is the player's number, name, position, and league. The back is arranged horizontally. The most important message on the back states that the set consists of 60 of the most prominent baseball players in the country. It also states that for 15 cents you could get an album in which to display your set. No albums have ever been found. And then it ends with American Caramel Company. The cards are printed in a thin cardboard paper stock, so they're very thin, almost paper-like. And there's 13 Hall of Famers. The thing with this set is it's very similar to the 1921 American Caramel set, the pictures. So, for example, the Babe Ruth card is the biggest card in the set. It's very rare. And what it actually will show is the montage version of the Babe Ruth card, but more close up. So it's a real rough, tough card to find. There's also a Ty Cobb in that set, Walter Johnson, again the Babe Ruth, and it's a 1927 Babe Ruth. It was his best year basically there. So it says to purchase the rare cards, it's the rare Hall of Famers are Cobb, Speaker, Johnson, Babe Ruth, and the last year Kelly card, and that's the George Kelly that it mentions down here. So that's the American Caramel, 1927. Now we get into the 1927 York Caramel set. And I happen to have a 1927 York Caramel here. So I'll share that one with you guys in a little bit. So the 1927 York Caramel E210-1, because there's two different versions of it. And both of them are the same pose. I'll go on to the next thing and show you that one. But issued in 1927 by the York Caramel Company of York, Pennsylvania, the set is loaded with 31 Hall of Famers. This is the Type 1 set, which is numbered and non-glossy. That's the big difference between Type 1 and Type 2. One is glossy, one is not. The other version is the E210-2, or the Type 2, which is the glossy set on the next page. The front of these black and white cards show an action pose of the player surrounded by a 3/8-inch border. At the bottom is the card number and the player's name. The reverse has a horizontal design. At the top is the player's name in capital letters, followed by the player's slogan and position. So this, again, is 1 3/8 by 2.5, and it's a set of 60 different cards. And give you a better look at what they look like here. This is it, the 1927 York Caramel Type 1. So you can see what they look like there. There's an action pose of the player with the name on the bottom in bold and the number. And on the back, it will tell you a little thing about each player, and that it's a series of 60 of the most prominent stars in baseball, the York Caramel. So that's what the backs look like. Some of the big players in this set are, again, it tells you here are the Cleveland Alexander, the Collins, the Cobb, Trispeaker, Walter Johnson, and of course the Babe Ruth. And the Babe Ruth is the big one in that, along with the Ty Cobb. So moving on to the next one is the Type 2, which is pretty much the same. The difference is that the fronts are glossy, and this has a set of 48 versus a set of 60 on the other side. And same thing, virtually distributed the same way. They are much rarer than the Type 1. That's the only difference. So you see that the prices are going to be almost double for some of these guys. And you still have the Ruth, the Cobb, Speaker, except since they are much rarer and than the Type 2 and then the Type 1, these are still tougher to find. And the checklist is still incomplete. They've only found 48 different ones. You can see the difference between them here. Just a glossy version of this one here. So moving on to the next one is, now we got the Mike Petty's favorites, the Yinglings, the Ying Yings as he calls them, the Yinglings ice cream. This is the 1928 Yinglings ice cream cards. And I really, really like these cards. And there's, a few companies produce this. There are Yinglings, there's Harringtons, and there's Tharps, and there's, I always forget the last one that Dave Blue Jacket reminds us of. But there's really 3 major companies that produce these cards, and they all look the same. The fronts all look the same. They're very, very similar except for some of the information in the back. So 1928 Yinglings Ice Cream, issued in 1928 by the Yinglings Ice Cream Company to capitalize on the popularity of baseball in the Roaring '20s. These cards are in black and white. They feature action shots of the players. The pictures is enclosed by a wide white border, and at the bottom of the card, in a box, is the card number and the player's name. The sun's shining through here in South Florida. So they came. The back reads, "Save these pictures. One ice cream bar will be given free for each picture of Babe Ruth, making the Ruth card rarer. Printed on thick cardboard paper. This is a very undervalued set and rare to find," it says on here. And the back, again, it has different, depending on what the card is, it will tell you, Yinglings or Harringtons or Tharps, and it'll tell you to save these pictures. So let's take a look at some of the big guys that are in this set here. Let me shoot down a little bit here. We got some sun shining through. So you see some of the big names in this set, and they're, of course, Babe Ruth. You got the Lou Gehrig, which is again says his rookie card here. Probably not technically his rookie card, but they call it his rookie card here. And all of the other Hall of Famers that are in the set, Grover Cleveland Alexander, pretty much all the guys, Ty Cobb, Trispeaker, and it's a set of 60, and I will share my Yinglings. Here's one of my Yinglings here. So this is what they look like, the 1928 Yinglings. This is the Adolfo Luque, and that's what they actually look like, with the picture of the player, the number, and on the bottom it has the name of the player. And on the back it tells you, save these pictures. One ice cream novelty will be given free for each picture of Babe Ruth. That's why the Babes are tougher to find, because they would return these back. It says 1 gallon of Yinglings ice cream will be delivered free to the holder of a complete set of 60 different cards. And the Babe Ruth can also be saved for a scooter even. So that's the Yinglings. But again, there are other companies that did produce it, and there's the Tharps and the Harringtons. So this is the Tharps version of it. The fronts are all exactly the same. There's no difference between the fronts of the cards. It's the backs of the cards. So I'll share the Tharps card. This is a Tharps ice cream card of Miguel Gonzalez that I was able to get from Greg at Midlife. thanks to him. And again, the same look as the Yingling and the and this is the Tharps and the Harrington. So again, this one says the differences in the back. Each one of them wants you to return the Babe Ruth card for a free ice cream bar. So the Babe becomes a tougher card now. Again, 1 gallon. This one they give you different things. A gallon of ice cream. So that's the Tharps, that's the Yinglings, and there's also the Harrington's version of the ice cream cards. So next, we're moving into the 1930s. And I think I'm going to end it right there. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and end the video right here, and 35 minutes into it. So next, we're going to head to the 30s. So we've covered the 20s. We're going to head to the 30s. We've got some beautiful things coming up. The caramel cards, the buttercream cards, George Miller. You got the DeLongs coming up here in the 30s, and a lot of really cool stuff. So thanks for watching, guys. This is Orlando from A Collector's Dream. Truly appreciate you guys just hanging out with me today on this beautiful day in South Florida and checking out some cards from the 1920s. So appreciate you guys watching. Catch you on the next one. Please like and subscribe if you like this series, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think and which ones you enjoy watching, which cards you'd like to collect. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. It's Orlando from A Collector's Dream. Have an awesome, awesome day.